If you're looking to get started with your xTool laser, but you're a little bit overwhelmed with all the different options and the capabilities of the laser, this video will be great for you to get started on a very simple, basic project that will get you good results on your first try. And what we're going to do is we'll make a slate coaster like this one, and I'm going to give you the design file and everything that you need to get started and to get it processed. And I think that this is just a really good material to start working with. These slate coasters are cheap. You can get those off Amazon, and they're not going to catch on fire because it's rock. And it's just, they usually get really good results, and you can use the built-in settings on the xTool Studio software. And so it's just a great place to start. And once you get several projects behind you and you're successful with that, then you can start to go to other materials like this basswood plywood, and you can build something like this box. But of course, this is a little bit more complex. You have to think about the cutting all the way through the material in some places, and in some places you're engraving on it. But again, xTool makes this really easy in the software because a lot of the settings are already configured for you. But it can be a little bit intimidating. So that's why in this video I wanted to slowly walk through the process of making this slate coaster so you can get familiar with the software, getting familiar with downloading and getting projects from Atomm, and then also setting up and using your laser with that software and actually going through the steps of engraving on this coaster. So hang in there and we'll get started on this project.
So after you get the software installed, you can launch xTool Studio and you'll land on this welcome page. The welcome page has some banners that are some updates and information about the xTool community. You'll see recently used projects, and then as you scroll down, you'll see projects from the Atomm website where you can download pre-built projects to help you get going quickly. So the xTool Studio software is a one-stop shop for designing and for preparing your designs, as well as sending those projects to your laser. So you manage the design and the laser all from this one software, and you don't export it and go out to different software generally. Unlike others, lasers or CNCs, you'll design in one software and then you take and prepare it in one software, and then you'll take and run the machine with another piece of software. xTool has put all of that in one spot. So let's get started with a new project. So to do that, simply click the new project button up in the top right corner, and it will launch a blank canvas like this. And you'll see the software is laid out into three main sections. You've got the tools over here on the left-hand side, you have the canvas in the middle, and on the right-hand side, you have your machine controls and the processing that you'll be doing with the machine. Now, before we jump into a project, I wanted to show you the Atomm website. This is where you can go and find designs that are already set up and ready to go for your laser. So this is a great resource as you're getting started, and it's something that I highly recommend just picking something from here and downloading it and getting it going. So how do you do that? So on Atomm, you'll see a lot of free community design files that are out there for free, but there are some paid options as well. So you can see I'm showing my page that I have, and I have some items that are free, and I have items that are premium items that are paid. And so just get in there and browse. Whenever you get started, I think you get like 200 free credits, so that's a good thing to keep in mind. But for this project, let's look at this coaster project that I have, and that's something that we can use to get started and take a look at the software. So whenever you click on a project, you can see information about a how-to. So there's a lot of information here about the processes that you'll take and what you need to do to get started with the project. A description, and there'll be pictures of the finished product that people have uploaded. So you can see here I've uploaded a couple, and over here on the right-hand side, you can bookmark projects and come back to them later. But what we need to do is just click on download, and this will download it to your computer. Now you do have to be signed in, and I'm using an in private window just to show you this, but once you click download and you sign in, then you'll download that directly to your downloads folder on your computer. Okay, now with the project open, let's take a look in more depth what the software looks like and what are the functionality of each of the parts of the software. So the first thing I want to look at is the canvas. Now in xTool Studio, you can have more than one canvas per project. So up here in the top, you can see this is the title of my project, but down here in the bottom left corner, there is this icon you can click to open up a panel to navigate between different canvases. So you might be wondering, well, what's the purpose or what's the need of having multiple canvases? Well, in my experience, what I use the multiple canvases for is to have different variations of the project. So like here, I've got different designs, so different logos, maybe different text. Another good use for it is if I have a project where the parts for that project would not fit on the canvas because the project's so big, then I'll spread that across multiple canvases. Or let's say that the parts are too big to fit on one single sheet, like a 12 by 12 sheet of material, then I'll design out what I want to cut out on one sheet, and then in another canvas put other parts that would get cut out. But again, for this tutorial, we're doing these slate coasters, so we're doing something pretty simple, and it all will fit on one. But I do have multiple variations of this coaster, and this is all saved within this one project file. If you wanted to create more than one canvas, you just click the plus at the top, and a new canvas will appear. And you can actually name each canvas by clicking on the three dots and rename. So this one could be, a friendly name, so that way it would be easier for you to kind of tell what's going on. And you can collapse the canvas by clicking on the canvas selection by clicking on this icon. So the next section that we want to look at is the layers panel. So looking at this, down in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see that we have the layers panel. And the layers panel shows you each of the layers or elements in the project or in the canvas. And this is useful because maybe sometimes you need to, it may be hard to select a specific element in the project, and you can go through this list and easily select them. Another useful feature here is that you can actually lock elements. So that way, if I'm trying to align things and I don't want to move this square, then I can lock it in and I can't accidentally move that. It's also useful to know if you download a project and there's an element that you can't edit, then you might need to go into the layers selection list here and then unlock some of the elements. Also, you can show and hide specific elements. And that might be helpful in case you are trying to fine tune a design or trying to just hide a single element, and you can get some of the other parts of this design out of the way. Also within this layers menu, you can see that there's colors up at the top. So in this one, everything is black on the black color group. But I may want to divide this out so that the engraving is black, and I may want something that's going to be cut to be in red, and then maybe something that I want to score would be in blue. So you can see how you could organize and group elements so that way they're kind of easier to manage by color. So that's just something to keep in mind. And you can also just select all and then right click on it, and then you can see here move to, and that's how I'm changing the color group that elements are in. So again, keep in mind these two icons in the bottom left to really navigate the layers and the different canvases. I've had a lot of comments whenever people download some of the project files that I have and they can't find the other canvases in the project, and that's where I've put other parts, and they didn't see that. So I'll comment and they say, oh yeah, I didn't realize that there was multiple canvases. So I definitely wanted to point that out. It's an important part of the software. It's a very powerful tool as well. So the next part of the software that we want to look at is all of this toolbar on the left-hand side. And there's a lot here. We could get into the applications and really dive into what all these can do, but I think each of those could probably be their own video. There are lots of elements and things that you can add in, like basic shapes and pre-built designs. So that's definitely something to explore. There are links out to projects that you can get from Atomm. You can pull in AI generated designs into your project. But I wanted to focus in on some of the more basic tools that you'll use probably in every project. So these are the more common ones and more basic ones to get started with before you dive into some of those more complex tools in this toolbox. First thing that I wanted to show you was the insert. So if you click on this insert, it will be taking you to files on your computer. And this is handy for SVGs, or maybe you have image files like a PNG or a JPEG file that you want to import into your project. And I'm not really going to dive into those, but a good example here is just this image or this SVG that I have of the mountains and the coffee cup. The next thing is text. So if you click on this and you just click anywhere on the canvas, it will begin the text entry. So, and then on the left-hand side, you can change your font. Up at the top, you'll see there's some settings for you can change, is it bold? What's the font size? There's a lot of manipulation that you can do to the text here. It's a lot of powerful tools. And one thing that you may overlook, I wanted to mention, is once you type something in, and you see that you've got it selected here, out to the right, there is a tool that you can curve the text. And that's really handy in case you're working with something that's on like a curve or whatever, and you want to make the text match that curvature. This is where you would, that's a really handy tool to use. So I'm just going to hit delete to clear off that text. So the text tool, spend a lot of time in that, play around. There's a lot to learn there. The next thing is the simple vectors or simple shapes that you can put into your project. And you can draw lines, rectangles, and circles. These are all the basic shapes that you're going to begin working with. So if I just click on rectangle, and I'll just draw me a rectangle. And when that is selected, you'll notice up at the top, there are various properties for that particular shape. So I can set the location, the XY position of it. I can adjust the units, the length and the width of it, or the height and the width rather. And so one really handy tip here is you can, with this selected, you can hit Control K on your keyboard, and that will change the units. It's not doing it because it's highlighted, but Control K will change the units from millimeters to inches on the canvas. And that's helpful, especially if you're trying to measure something. Maybe it's the object that you're working on, you're trying to match that measurement. Really good example for this particular project, I measured the coasters that I have, and I drew this box around it to measure or to match up. So that way I could position the design and get it to be the right scale for the project. So to change the dimensions of a project or an element in the project, just simply select either the length or the height, the width of the height, and just type in the number. So I wanted this to be 4 inches. Now, one thing you'll notice is the default is for this to be locked, for the ratio of the width and the height to be locked. So you can deselect this so that way you can edit it independently. So we're going to change that to 4 by 4. So you can see I got an easy 4 inch by 4 inch square just by editing those properties. Another handy thing to know is this is a curve radius to get rounded corners. So you'll enter in a value to round off the corners. You can see there I gave it a 1 inch radius there. So there are some other tools like an alignment tool. You can change, you can reflect. Of course, that's not going to do anything much with a square, but you can reflect it. But you can also go in and edit the points of the vector manually if you want to. So this is really handy to be able to fine-tune a vector once you get it into the software.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to engrave on this little slate coaster. These are really inexpensive. Like I said, they're like $1 a piece, and they're pretty easy to engrave on. It doesn't make a lot of smoke, so I recommend this as a really good starter project, something that you can engrave, and they sell really well too. So they will sell for a set of 4 coasters will sell for $12. We've sold a lot of those, and it's all about what you engrave on it. So just finding that thing that people in your area will want to buy, and it's pretty good, pretty easy product to create and sell. And so we can create this easily on our laser. So what we want to do is go ahead and open up your laser and have it powered on, and just set this out in the workspace. And then we're going to go over to the software and get everything set up. Alright, so over in the software now, you'll notice that we've got the laser showing in the top right corner, but it is not connected. You'd see a little green dot right here if it is connected. So first step is to click here to connect. Now there's a bunch of different ways to connect your laser. So you could be connecting with USB, but I'm doing this wirelessly, so I've already got that set up. And so to connect, we'll just click on the laser. So with it connected, the first thing that we need to do is we need to select our material. So here I've went in, I selected that I'm going to be using this rock, which is the slate material. We'll click apply. Then we need to determine the distance. So the nice thing about the laser that I'm using is it is the S1, and it has the probe on it. So over here back on the laser, I'm going to just pull the laser into somewhere with the workpiece, and I'm going to go ahead and take a measurement. So using the software, we'll go over here and click on this little icon, and so you can see that caused the laser to release the probe. It goes down, touches it, and then it'll go over into the top right corner of the workspace, and it will reset the probe, and it kind of is just the control there. So now we have our laser set to the right depth, and we have our design on the workspace. Now that you've connected the laser, you actually probably notice here we've got the crosshairs of the laser. So that tells me on this grid where's my laser actually positioned. Well, the trick is I need to get my design positioned over the actual coaster. So how do you do that? There's a couple of ways you can do it with the S1. So what I'm going to do is move the laser to the top left corner so that the red lines are close to the edges of the coaster itself. So when I do that, now in the software I'll hit Control A to select all if I'm using a shortcut, or I can just click and drag over the entire design. Now we'll drag that down and drop it, and it locks. It'll actually snap to, you can see here, it snaps to that little red crosshairs. So now we've got it positioned in the same space as it actually physically is over here on the laser, and we've got it positioned the same way in the digital space. So that's one way you can do it. There's actually in the laser panel over here, there's a tool that you can use that you can actually mark the corners of the object that you're trying to engrave, and that also will give you a little bit of a workspace. But for this beginner tutorial, I suggested and showed you how to use this rectangle, and that rectangle will give us an idea. So it's easy that we were using this square coaster shape, and so since it's, the square, this rectangle shape that we have in the canvas, this makes it easy for us to line it up. So one thing that I like to do before I hit go, or before I start to process anything, is I always like to just kind of double check my settings. So I can right click on this and hit ungroup just to be sure that I've got everything set up the way that I wanted it. So we can make sure that that outside square is not set to be output. The rest of everything else should be set up to engrave, and we're using the presets that came on the xTool Studio. So before we start, we can go down here to the bottom and we can use the framing tool to let our laser trace around the outside of the design. Now this is only going to be the part of the design that's actually going to be processed. So you'll see this actually will come in to the inner part of the coaster and not trace the outside edge or the square that I had on the canvas. So you can see it came in, it's going to trace over. There we go. Sometimes it's good just to kind of watch that again, just to make sure that it's where you want it at. So the thing that I was watching for is you can kind of see where the rock starts to break over and kind of rounds over. I'm trying to keep it up on the flattest spot or part of this coaster. It looks pretty good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and click this to cancel out, and we'll click process, and we need to make sure that we close the lid. We'll see the design there, and we can click start. So that's going to be sent to the laser. You'll hear that loud beep, and once that beep happens, you'll see that the button changes the LED color, and we can press that to begin the job. Now we just sit back and watch the laser go. Be sure that you're wearing any protective equipment like eye protection if you're not using a laser that is enclosed like the S1. Alright, so laser wrapped up. We've got our design engraved and looks great. So again, just using the default settings out of xTool Studio will get you some really good results. There's a lot of presets that are in there for different materials, so just explore those. And you may find that you need to adjust and tweak some of the settings, which is perfectly fine. But just to get started, you will have a really good product, just using those default settings, and things will look great.